There he is. Hey,
Hi.
what's happening?
Oh,
Hey, hold on a second.
Hold on, hold on. We're all gonna tilt this way now. There we go.
There we go.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
There we
There
go.
you go.
Hey, there we go.
Beautiful. Dun,
I don't know what's
dun,
going on with my phone here, but I always have to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's so weird with Zoom on the phone. Like if you hold it portrait, then it stays. It's all over the place.
Okay. Hold 1 second. I'll get it together here.
No, you're good. You look good now, but as long as we're
Okay.
stable.
Fantastic. Good
He
morning.
looks very good. Look at that haircut. We share the beauty.
Yeah, but his is nice
Beautiful.
and shiny, Mitch. I think your guy's gonna do better.
Yeah, well, I do it myself, and I'm just not been in the mood lately. But all right.
Oh, geez, there you go. Look, let's talk all about this. The Elephant of Mars, brand new record from Joe Satriani, coming out on April 8th. You can pre-order it now wherever you get your music. There's multiple colored vinyls, CDs, different packages available. Love to see it. Welcome to the show. Very stoked to
Thank
talk
you.
to Mr. Joe Satriani.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good.
We're great. First of all, I want to start with the 2 amps you got behind you. You got the EL34 100 watt head. You got the
Yes.
original. Is that a block letter? It looks like a block letter.
Is it?
Or does it have the signature on the front?
Signature.
Huh?
The block letters in the other room.
Ah.
Yeah, I've had that forever. That thing sounds amazing. Got my JVM. I've got a beautiful 7100 watt. I don't know if you can see that. Can I do that over
Yeah,
on the
you can move
smoke?
it over. Nice.
There you go. Yeah. And
Is that a fractal on top?
it is.
Oh, you're a cheater.
You know, it's really funny. That
Cheater.
is
No.
that's the most expensive digital delay ever. I mean, that's all I use it for is delay and reverb in the effects loop. It seems to pass the signal better, although, yeah, I mean, I've done gigs where I just use a little boss delay and that's fine with me. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure it must be a lot better than, lugging around the rack with the PCM 70s and the SDE 3000s.
Yeah, I was never a big fan of that. I mean, a few of my heroes like Eddie Van Halen, he did really well with that. And but I've always liked having one amp to plug into and one speaker box to get mic'd up, So yeah, I've always looked for something a little simpler, a little bit more direct. But yeah, sometimes I've done that where I have a dry cabinet and 2 wet ones in stereo. That's like luxury.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Your tone's mostly been just like a half stack the whole time?
That's all you hear. I mean, they only mic one cabinet live, and in the studio, we mic a lot of stuff up, but we kind of eventually we favor one mic on one speaker for whatever part it might be. Not very often. I mean, I think in the old days, there was a lot of blending, like Andy Johns for the Extremist record, he put 7 mics on a cabinet and he would blend it. And he would sort of improvise it during the course of the day. And I never knew what he wound up using. It was a mystery. No one ever touched that part of the board. It was like, he wouldn't let anybody go near it.
Right.
But yeah, you get some interesting sounds, but it kind of depends. If you're the only guitar, you can take up more real estate. But if you've got, 12 tracks of guitar and keyboards and singers, you've got to, carve your space. So sometimes a smaller rig is better.
We were just talking to Steve Vai the other day, and I was talking to him about, when you listen to instrumentalists and guitar players that are playing these, I mean, look, this is your 19th record of basically instrumental rock guitar.
Yeah.
At some point, it must be like, Steve described it as it can be bleeding people's ears when you're just playing these melodies. So your tone has to have a certain kind of sound to it. Do you go for that when you're recording these records and trying to find a tone, and like, does it have to sound pleasurable, and how do you achieve that?
Yeah, I'm always chasing the inspiration, the meaning of the song is the most important thing. And if it's not right as I'm playing it, then I just change it, and I keep moving towards that. It's a real different thing than like when I'm recording with Chickenfoot. I've got this crazy, insane singer, Sammy Hagar, with this huge voice, and Chad and Mike, just fantastic, big personality, big sound to everything they do. And you can take a solo and step on the wah-wah and just shred like crazy because you got like 8 bars or 16 bars, and then it goes back to Sam. That's a very different thing than if you've got 4.5 minutes of a kind of a ethereal instrumental, let's say a song like Faceless from the new record, or even the first single, Sahara. It's conveying complex emotions. And so you're not just the lead guitar player that shreds in the song. And so it's entirely different. It's like the way a jazz combo or an orchestra would approach it. Whoever's playing the main melody, that's extremely important that you get the tone is right for the melody, is right for the meaning of the song. So that's the way I look at it. And yeah, I'll tell you, this is the craziest thing. So you're looking at all these beautiful amps, and they are really great amps behind me, and I love playing through them. On this album, although I record direct, I've done that for decades, and then we reamp very often when we get into different rooms, and so you can re-record, a solo or a melody through.
It's funny you're saying that because Steve Vai said the same thing. He does a lot of reamping, and I don't think a lot of fans realize that. Like, it's a lot more technical than just putting an SM57 on your 30-watt greenback. Like,
yeah, I mean, eventually that may be the thing that why you're reamping, because maybe when you performed it, you didn't have that great 4x12 with the greenbacks in it, but that 2 weeks from now I'll be across town and I'll have the perfect one I can borrow from my friend Steve or whatever.
Yeah.
So you plan it that way, and that's the way you get records done. The thing is that we did that as we've done for all the albums, but in the final analysis, we kept moving towards this SansAmp plugin, and I didn't use any amps on this new album. It's just insane. When I think about it, I didn't plan on it. And we recorded the Marshalls and the 5150, and we had lots of really cool modeling suites. And
well, I know you got your amplitude stuff. I mean, you modeled the Rockman and the 5150 and all these things. Like, I mean, so much fun. Yeah, with the digital stuff, you don't really need to use an amp.
Yeah, it's funny. It really depends on the context, I'd have to say. And you guys know that program music, like if you listen to EDM music, it's going to be more compressed in general. If you're making music, let's say for video games, there's no dynamic range because the music has to accompany sound effects and talking and things. So they squish it down. So why would you need a super dynamic, a recording of a guitar through 3 double Marshall stacks or whatever? It's like pointless.
And then it gets brick-walled and mastering. I mean,
exactly. So you might as well, have fun with AT5 and go through all those incredible presets, and then you can make it match, your context. But if you're making a classic rock kind of an album, then everything's got to breathe a little bit more.
Right.
You want that dynamic range. You want your guitar to be really loud and all of a sudden get buried by a drum fill or something. That's what makes, I think, rock music so interesting, is that interplay in the recordings.
Yeah.
But again, if that's not the function of the recording, then you shouldn't do that. So in this particular case, what surprised us was that recording the SansAmp plugin and then taking that out, putting it through some cool outboard gear, like I kid you not, John Bryan's studio where we did the mixing, he had Les Paul's very own personal 1176 limiter. So my guitar went out into that, and a few other really beautiful tube EQs and limiters. And so it just, it brought the level of that plugin up, and the plugin itself is extremely dynamic. It's not like some of the other, let's say, heavy metal modeling guitar suites that really are designed more for that kind of metal, where dynamic range is smaller and there's a lot more ensemble playing.
Yeah.
On my records, everyone is their own guy. You know what I mean? Everyone's doing something different. So we don't really play parts together like progressive rock, where everyone's playing the exact same riff and you've got to get everyone totally mixed,
Well, I mean, you've played in pretty much every studio, on every stage, through every piece of gear at this point. Do you think that, talking about this, do you think that engineering has sort of become like a lost art and like isn't appreciated as it used to be?
Well, it's definitely not a lost art. As a matter of fact, I think engineers today are celebrating on one hand because finally the fans can hear all the low end that they hear when they're in $1 million studio.
Right.
And that was, back in the old days. I remember, going to cut, to master and to cut the LPs for Surfing with the Alien, and knowing that we were going to take a lot of the low end off because there was no way to get the groove to get cut into the vinyl with all the low end that was on the 2-inch tape. And you kind of go, it's a sad moment. You go, okay, that's going to happen. And then you realize that the tracks that you put towards the end of every sequence on each side of the album also suffer not only distortion, but also less low end. And you get kind of bummed out.
Yeah.
But now it's totally different. There's Ultra HD that you can listen to, let's say on something like Amazon Music. And it sounds, almost identical to what we hear when we're in the studio and we're about to master something. So That's exciting. And that means that the engineers really, they have no excuse now.
Yeah.
They because the audience can finally hear, from 20 hertz to 20K, it's being delivered and more. So yeah, record in 96 or 192 and be prepared for your audience to hear all of it.
It's interesting that you had to sacrifice tone back in the day for it to fit on the vinyl.
Oh yeah. Isn't that crazy? And then, the other thing about it is today vinyl is made from digital masters. So we really are just in a whole other, this is the future. This is where we're at. It's got really nothing to do with how records were made or how they sounded, how they were played in living rooms in 1970 or 1980.
Mitch is almost creaming himself, waiting to say a CD is the best.
CDs are the best. And this whole thing that vinyl is the greatest sound, it's not. It's digital masters, or it's the mastered for Apple Music and they just shove it on a piece of plastic. It's not better. You just believe it is and you want to buy into the fantasy,
but it's
not.
It's pink and it's orange. Like,
oh, God.
I'll tell you what's great about vinyl is the experience that it provides the listener. And I think that's a really big deal. And I see this all the time. I observe people a lot. And when I'm out in the real world, when I'm not, my head's not filled with music and playing guitars, I'll go out and I'll go, how do I see people listening to music? And I see them completely distracted, arbitrarily putting earbuds in, listening to music on, car systems, which are ridiculous. The EQ curve on,
everybody's scooping the mids and just cranking the bass and treble now.
No, the way people listen to music it just makes a music maker go like throw their hands up in the air and go, why did I spend all that time on the mid range if nobody hears it?
Joe, you're telling me you don't sit there with an iPhone in a solo cup blasting through? Come on.
No, but
we've all tried it. We've all had that thing where we've got like a fake radio station set up in the lounge of the recording studio, or or the engineer says, okay, let me take this out to the car. I'll let you know in 10 minutes how it sounds. But ultimately, I don't think any of that matters because people listen to music and it's the way that they listen to it is part of the experience. So when you get an LP, you're actually I don't want to say forcing, but what you're introducing is a method of listening. And that I think is really important. You carefully remove something, you look at it, you appreciate its physical form, you put it on this mechanical thing, you're very careful about it.
Yeah,
and you sit back and you look at it and you listen to it expecting something. And people don't do that when they're just, doing emails and listening to some streaming service. They're not even caring it's coming out of some teeny little speaker or it's going into their earbuds. They've accepted some lower level, horrible Bluetooth stream thing. But let me end it by saying this. If you guys told me that you had a recording of Mozart on this piece of paper, magically, somehow they figured out how to do that, I wouldn't care about its fidelity. I really wouldn't. I'd say, oh my God, you've got Mozart recorded on this piece of paper?
Right.
I'm going to listen to this like all the time.
Wow, that's like old bootlegs from back in the day. I mean, they all sound like shit from the soundboard cassette that's all degraded. And people are like, oh, yeah, the Van Halen 77 show with Gazaris. It sounds amazing.
Look at this. I'm so glad you said that because I just been playing with this thing.
Oh,
there you go.
You got a Sustainiac in there?
It's my own mod on Frankenstein. I don't know. I mean, Eddie's going to come back and kill me, but I just but I added
his grave.
I added a Sustainiac, a clear pick guard. I removed the stuff that doesn't do anything, right. And then I added a kill switch. Now I didn't do this myself. This is master luthier Gary Brower did it for me, wow. And so yes, anytime someone says Eddie Van Halen, I feel compelled to show this guitar.
Is that the Stripe Series one, or is that? It's not like the $25,000 one.
No.
It's the Guitar Center one.
It'll be $1 million after you guys sign it.
I'll come sign it for you.
This is straight from Bananas at Large, and they're kind enough to get one of these for me. Sounds really good. Fun guitar.
At the end of the day, Eddie would be proud that you took it and made it your own because that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, he was a tinkerer and a great inventor, and thank God, Yeah.
I just want to take you back to the beginning for 1 second because I'm older, and of course I got to know you with the Greg Kihn Band, and of course Love and Rock and Roll. Love and Rock and Roll. Yeah. You're there, you're playing the breakup song in Jeopardy, you're on stage, you're doing, and then you leave. Were you not satisfied just being sort of the guy in a sort of a pop band doing the guitar, and you said, you know what? There's got to be more to just playing Jeopardy on stage. Talk to me about that time and then moving on and saying, nah, man, I got to go be an instrumentalist. I got to break out.
Oh, well, it's so much more complicated and rich, the story about that whole thing. So
let's hear it.
All right, I'll do it really quick. So you have to imagine I'm at a little guitar store called Secondhand Guitars in Berkeley, California.
Right. I'm
giving lessons. I receive a call from a collection agency while I'm there saying that the $5,000 that I owe needs to be paid by the end of the week or bad things are going to happen. And so you're probably wondering, why did Joe put all that debt on his card? And it was something like 19.5% back then and what, 85 or something. Well, it's because I recorded all of Not of This Earth, my first full-length album on my own record company label, Rabina Record, all on that card. That was the way I got discounts from all the local studios, was to pay everybody up front with these checks that came from this credit card. This is back when they used to just mail you credit cards in the early 80s. And so I remember just sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? This is going to be a tough one. And all of a sudden I get a call from Steve and Greg. They're down at Fantasy, which is across town, maybe, 2.5 miles in Berkeley. Right. And they go, Joe, I know this is the second time we've called you in the last couple of years. We really want you to join the band. You got to come this afternoon and help us finish this album. And we'll make it worth your while. So I thought, okay, this is a sign from above. It'll
cost you $5,000 for me to come down.
So I went down there, and they literally recorded me. I think I recorded 3 or 4 songs right there on the spot. I didn't even hear them. I mean, I just tune up, and they play the song. I'd start playing, and they go, "That's it, great. Let's move on to the next
song." That's good, perfect. One take, Joe. That's his new nickname.
Let's move on.
Really, and then afterwards, they were very happy. And I've known the guys for quite a few years because they were kind enough to let us open for them. I was in a band called The Squares, and we do a lot of shows with them. And they were a great band. I mean, they really had a thing going, and Greg was a really good front person, great singer. And but the manager lays on a ridiculous amount of cash, and he says, if we give you all this cash and we promise to pay you this per week, will you please say you'll stay with us for a year? And I had to think about that, how am I going to get this record finished, paid? And I'm already talking to Relativity Records in New York about doing a P&D deal with them. and that's a production distribution. Right. And so it all clicked, and I said, okay, let's shake hands. I'll do it. So as I'm on tour with Greg, two things are happening. My relationship with Relativity Records is getting better and better, and we get a release date for this first album of mine. And the Greg Kihn Band is falling apart. It was like being on a plane that was on fire that was just slowly descending. And it was a rough, because I'd seen that band in Berkeley for years, and I'd seen them rise from being a local club band to being, to having like the number 2 record in the world, and it was kind of sad to see that happen. But I stayed with them up until about October, I think. So yeah, I gave them about 11 months or so, but it just fell apart. It was their last record for EMI.
For a while, right.
Yeah, so it was EMI. And I went on. I went to Sweden. I played with Jonas Hellborg for about a month. I came back, did a showcase for Relativity, and played them Satch Boogie and a few things, new songs I was working on. And they, right there at the China Club in New York City, they signed me to a deal to do the next album, which was Surfing with the Aliens. So it was a crazy year, but it was followed by even a crazier year, because I did that record for the next year. As soon as it came out and I hit the road, a week later, I joined Mick Jagger's solo band. So it was like, these back-to-back years where my life went through some crazy changes, all for the better.
And you paid off the credit card. So
wow, that was crazy. I'll never do. I don't recommend that to anyone.
Was that called Cousin Vinny? Was it the Cousin Vinny credit card?
It was. I don't remember it, but it came from like South Carolina or West Virginia. It was some bank that I never heard of before that said, Joseph Satriani, because of your good standing in the community, we have decided to give you this credit card. And I'd like a sucker. I just said, okay.
Sure, why not? Let me just quickly follow up on that. But playing in a band situation like Greg, was that just not satisfying for you creatively? Not in terms of the people, but did you sort of look at your guitar and say, there's more than just clanging along to these songs? There's Surfing with the Alien in my head.
Yeah. There was, because as I was on tour with Greg, I was writing Surfing, Ice Nine, songs like that in the hotel rooms, and very excited about it. And but at the same time, I got to say, it's a privilege when you get to play on stage and stand with the band and watch somebody like Greg work an audience every night. I mean, yeah. I've been on stage with Mick Jagger do that, and Sammy Hagar and Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. These are very special people with this very unique talent. They got great voices. They have this personality where they can just light up a room. Doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 50,000 or 100,000. They can take control of it just by looking at people and talking and singing. And Greg was great fun that way. He was really totally live and legit, Had a great voice back then too.
Yeah, you got to love it. And then I'll just quickly follow up with this. Surfing comes out, or Not of This Earth also comes out. I am from that era. It wasn't really an era of instrumental music. It was Def Leppard, it was Bon Jovi, it was Debbie Gibson, it was Madonna. It was big, flashy, This wasn't big, flashy, whatever. Did at any point of you say, I got to get a vocalist, I got to get the spandex. Talk to me about taking that chance and saying, nope, this is what I do. I don't care if it's 1987. This is what
Mutt Lange doing my backing vocals.
Yeah.
I think there were some gray areas where, first of all, I got to tell you a funny situation. When I did go to that, the show at the China Club, a little showcase, after I finished playing with Greg, and I play that show. I go out to the record company offices, and I'm standing in the middle of the offices around all the employees right next to Barry Coburn, the president. And he's looking really nervous because he's looking at me and he says out loud, "You don't look like a rock star." And you could, there was this silence in the room because everyone was thinking, well, why would you say that? He was genuinely nervous about signing me because I didn't look like my good friend Steve Vai. He was cut out to be a rock star,
Right.
And so I said, well, what I do is something different. It's something unique. It's different. And you either have to get it or you don't. And luckily there were other people in the record company, especially Cliff Cultreri, head of A&R, who really understood and told those guys, you have to understand what Joe's doing here. It's something unique. He doesn't have to wear the spandex. We don't have to put grotesque images
wig on and stuff. No, because as a fan back then, when Def Leppard had a song and it hit the radio, I go, oh, I understand it. It's got the melody. But when yours became a success, I just went, wow, how did that happen? Because in a sense, it wasn't supposed to happen because you weren't the MTV guy.
Yeah. That was always a struggle. Even when we tried to be, MTV people, we got pushback all the time. And there's plenty of funny stories about all those videos and how they eventually succeeded in spite of being snubbed by MTV. But it's really, I got to say that DJs came to my rescue. There were guys like Redbeard down in Texas who just decided he loved the album and he would play it. Or KLOS in Los Angeles, they just play the whole album, like every Sunday. The whole album.
Uncensored too.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And they were the intermediate between me and my fans who were just waiting for it. They just didn't know I was out there. So, all the credit goes to the DJs and the fans. I would have done it anyway, I do it on a smaller scale, but it was really a gift that just kind of fell into my lap. And, but you gotta, I tell young people all the time, you have to be prepared for good luck, even though it seems ridiculous to think that you could succeed at your dream. If you prepare yourself for that, when it comes, you'll be ready. You'll have something. But if you're not ready, it'll pass you by. It'll go to the next guy who's ready.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look, I mean, here we are, 19th studio album later, brand new record, The Elephants of Mars, coming out on April 8th. You can pre-order it now. Talking about this new record, how has your approach to writing music changed over the years? Is it still the same old Joe, or are you constantly surprising yourself?
I try to surprise myself. I think one of the big things that when I look back to, let's say, when I was 14 and I was learning guitar and I tried to write songs, I had very little to write about. I'd only been on the planet for 14 years. And when you're 14, it's mainly like hormones and stuff. It's not a whole lot going on in the brain, It's fun. It's, one of the greatest times ever when you're that young. It's a great time to learn something physical too, because your body's really cooperating at the highest level. But you haven't lived yet, so how do you come up with 60, different versions of I feel good or I feel sad or I'm in love or I'm not in love anymore? You have to live life to understand the complexities of it and then to turn it into art. Mm-hmm. And so I think my method is to be more relaxed with myself, to open up more to myself and to reach down and not be ashamed or embarrassed or afraid to write about difficult subjects. And also to say, no, this is a silly song, and I'm going to take it right to the as silliest point possible because I feel like I'm old enough and I can do that now. I would have been more self-conscious. Like when you're a kid, you're really self-conscious about what your friends think of you, or the other people in the room. But as you get older, you start to say, I don't care what people think. So the hope is that your body's still cooperating enough where you can perform these things that you're coming up with, these new, deeper representations of real emotions.
Whenever we talk to songwriters like Desmond Child, for example, he always says he comes in with a song title and then the song works around the title. He always comes in with a really strong title. How do you write your music? Are you coming in with the title then coming up with melody around that, or do you have the song and then you say, oh, this sounds like East 104th Street, New York City?
Yeah. That's where my father grew up, by the way. That's what that whole thing's about. Nice. Between First and Second Avenue. And I think that it comes almost all at once. The meaning of the song, the sound of it in my head, the full emotional inspiration. It seems to sort of come really fast, and I'll write it down. That's the key, is for me to write down the title and then to hold on to that inspiration and not let go until I've got a good representation of what it is. So I might, jot it down, just a chord sequence. It might be, if I've got manuscript paper down, I'll jot it down. I'll record it on my phone, or if I'm sitting in the studio, I'll get the Pro Tools up and I'll make a decent professional an attempt at a professional recording. Yeah. Anything to get it down, and before I lose track of why I was so, enthralled with that title or the meaning of that. And
are you a voice notes guy? Do you just have like tons of voice notes in your phone with ideas?
No, can't stand the sound of my voice. So that would drive me crazy, but I do have lots of notes and scraps of paper everywhere, with funny titles that I look at it and I go, what was I thinking? What does that mean? Elephants of Mars, but sometimes, it's so complex. Like the song Sahara was so complex. I wrote the lyrics, I recorded the demo, I sent it off within a day. Mm-hmm. And then it turned out that I don't think anybody, especially my singer, thought that it was a good thing to try to sing. And I probably just wrote like really bad lyrics or something. I don't know. But months later, it came back because my producer said, I love that song, but how about if it was an instrumental? What would you do different? And so I had to revisit it and kind of take those lyrics and distill it down into melody and figure out how can a guitar express this feeling. And Elephants of Mars title track, the music actually in a short sort of a crystallized form existed for quite a while before I got the idea that it should be this big song. And that then I got the idea for a science fiction story, and I ran it by my writing partner, Ned Evett at Satch Tunes, and we wrote the full story. And then I brought it back to the band to say, here's the song, it'll be the title track, and this is what it's all about. And of course, we all had a good laugh because it's a crazy idea. But it helped everybody relax and play more crazy, because it is a song about giant sentient elephants on a terraformed Mars in the future. So,
and it really does give you kind of free reign to just be creative and just come up with cool shit. Yes.
Yeah. Now, because if I said, no, this is about walking your dog, everyone would be so bored. They just give me boring performances, So, but you give them a good story and they start thinking, oh, what have I got that is as crazy as that title?
Right. And I mean, look, a song like Gotta Walk the Dog. I mean, it's 4 syllables. Gotta walk the dog. Like it's too simple.
Which, by the way, is the exact activity I'm going to do as soon as we're done with this interview. I've got 2 of them scratching at the door, so...
Nice. Well, listen, I know we're running out of time, but just real quick, brand new record from Joe Satriani. It's called The Elephants of Mars. You can pre-order it now, coming out on April 8th. Go and pick it up. The vinyls look phenomenal. CD, of course, you get the studio quality that he wants you to hear, right? 14 songs. Over the years, 15 Grammy nominations. Are you still pissed at them?
No, I don't care about that. It's always nice that I'm just surprised I know how to spell my last name. So I'm very happy. music.
One question I have for you, just a guitar question. You've taught some of the most incredible players over the years. I'm a guitar player and a musician. I'm constantly looking to up my game. Just from a guitar playing standpoint, what's a really good warm-up you recommend to students? And what's a good repetitive lick to try and build up speed and finger strength?
Oh, yeah. That's crazy, isn't it? Everybody wants to know that. I think after watching a lot of young players on Instagram today, that I am completely unqualified to answer that question. First of all, because they play so much better than I could ever play in terms of speed, dexterity, complexity. Mm-hmm. It's really, really exciting for the first time in the history of the world that there are guitar players that can do that on 6-string, 7-string, 8-string, 10-string. It's really great. I wish their albums were in the top 10 instead of them having to do that every day on Instagram. But there you go. But, bravo to them. I'm still doing chromatic exercises that I learned, back in 1970, because I think all you really want to do is kind of warm up. Mm-hmm. I think it's really more important to know where every note is on the guitar and to know how every scale sounds and where it is in every key. I know that's like the Mount Everest set of, things to accomplish when you're a beginner. Yeah. But the speed thing, I think, just comes. It'll just come when you start playing with people. But young people have to understand they should spend more time playing music for people and with people, because that's our job as musicians. Mm-hmm. It's not to get better in our bedroom looking at the mirror. That's not actually a viable way to live.
Yeah.
But musicians are supposed to make music for people, and that's an art form that can't be distilled into a set of exercises. You really just have to get with people, get in front of people, start playing, and see if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. Just have fun, play the music you like with the people you like, and do it in front of people. See if you can get them to laugh and smile, dance, and what.
I'll tell you what, I had people laughing at me, man, because it's like you talk about the Instagram people. They all they're in their bedrooms posting a video. They can practice Eruption all they want, then throw it up on Instagram. But then you put them up at Smoke Meat Pete's on Jam Night playing some blues, and it's like, here you go. And it's like, key of E, where? The improvisation just isn't there.
Yeah, it's a different world. I mean, if you went back in time and you took a really great rock and roll or blues or jazz player, and you tried to get them to provide the right kind of music for Fortnite or something like that, it just, it would be a total failure. And so there's, it's apples and oranges, or it's kind of like an unfair comparison. It's 2022. This is the reality. But man, those young players are just doing amazing things. They really are. And if you're a young guitar player, you should be studying that and realizing that is a display of human potential, and you've got it inside of you as a young person starting out. I can't imagine in 10 years what guitar players are going to be doing. It's so exciting.
Yeah. We got a question from Twitter. They want to know, are you running all of your effects through the effects loop, or is it going through the front of the amp?
Oh, the only thing that's in the effects loop is the fractal, and I use it for digital delay, some reverb, maybe one song where I need some backwards effects. That's it. But flangers, wah-wah, phasers, octavers, fuzz pedals, they all are in front of the amp. Yeah, between the guitar and the amp.
Nice.
There you go.
I know you had a couple of art shows back in January, but just real quick, I mean, aside from the one you got booked in March, are you going to be hitting the road with this music at some point this year, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're gearing up towards finalizing the fall tour in the U.S. I'm still waiting to find out if we're going to Europe in the spring, which is upon us. But it's crazy. I mean, just trying to get a straight answer from 17 different countries in Europe.
Try coming to Canada.
I know. Isn't it crazy? It's like now I'm starting to worry about it. How we're going to, I mean, crossing the border, as you know, between the US and Canada is harder than going from like Serbia to Croatia. I don't know why. But now it's even harder. So I'm, hopefully this insanity just calms down and everyone goes back to playing nice.
Yeah, right.
And we can just have fun again. I'm sure it's coming, but we have to be patient in the meantime.
Yeah. Just one last question. You got your Chickenfoot brethren on this new album. You got Kenny Aronoff. I mean, he filled in for Chad when he couldn't tour. Is there any new Chickenfoot in the pipeline at some point? Do you see yourself writing with Sammy and Mikey, getting back with the guys?
I talk with Sam a lot. I was just at his studio last week. All of us have like these huge plans. Like when we check in with each other, we go, oh, wow, that's what you're doing for the next year and a half. And so it seems so difficult, but in the past, everything we did as a band was done at the spur of the moment. And so we're not saying that's never going to happen, but we're not sure how it can happen. With the Chili Peppers about to mount another, world domination for a new record. Sammy's busy planning his life as well as Jason in the Circle. He's going out on tour for his Led Zeppelin thing. So, and they all know I'm super busy. I got a new album and the art exhibition. So we'll figure it out.
But that's not a no.
No, you grab Kenny and you go play all the state fairs as Chickenfoot. That's it. That's all.
Yeah, get a Sammy and Mikey impersonator. Why not?
That's all you need.
You can call yourself the other half.
You know how impossible, I'll tell you, you cannot replace those two people. Sammy and Mike are just like...
Oh, Eddie and Al would beg to differ.
I was a fan of the early
comment.
And so, it's really... But, my experience playing with those guys is it's really, you can't really just replace people. I mean,
no.
It just really work,
Yeah.
But those state fairs do sound inviting, though. They really do.
I don't know. I can smell the corn dogs already.
The corn dogs and the terrible backline supplied by the local music shop.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Anyways, listen, let's get out of here. Brand new record from Joe Satriani. Go pick it up. April 8th, The Elephants of Mars. Pre-order it now. Go get it. It's going to be fantastic. Joe, this is so great to meet you and chat. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show and talking about the new record. It's really, really been a pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah.
We will hopefully see you in Montreal soon.
Yes.
Yeah. Would be great.
Yeah.
Merci bien. Thank you.
Have fun with your Sustainiac and kill switch on that Frankenstein.
I'm going to do right now as soon as I log off.
Blasphemy.
Yes.
All right. See you later.
An all-new episode of The Mitch, Lafon, and Jeremy White Show.
Tuesday at noon.
Available wherever you stream.